90% of everything we buy moves by sea, but that massive volume of global trade is forced through just a handful of narrow, highly congested corridors. The most critical of these choke points is the Suez Canal. Nearly 15% of all global shipping traffic passes through this single waterway to move goods between Europe and Asia. This satellite image shows the physical reality of relying on such a narrow path. In 2021, the Ever Given container ship wedged itself sideways, blocking the entire canal and halting approximately $400 million worth of global commerce for every hour it sat stuck. Beyond physical accidents, this route is exposed to regional conflict. Recent attacks on commercial vessels in the Red Sea forced major shipping lines to abandon the canal entirely, avoiding active military zones. This map details the logistical cost of abandoning the Suez. Instead of a standard 10,000 nautical mile journey, container ships must detour around the African continent via the Cape of Good Hope, a 13,500 nautical mile journey. Taking this longer path adds up to 20 days of transit time and burns thousands of extra tons of bunker fuel. This pressure on the supply chain has caused localized freight rates, like those from Kolkata to Rotterdam, to spike by as much as 600%. Global trade remains vulnerable to the constraints of geography and regional conflict. To keep goods moving affordably, global powers are looking for a way to bypass these bottlenecks entirely. An alternative does exist, but it requires navigating the top of the world. Because the Earth's average temperature is rising, the frozen ocean that once blocked all naval traffic is thawing. Since the 1980s, late summer ice coverage in the Arctic has dropped by nearly 40%. It stretches across the top of the globe, hugging the Russian coastline to connect East Asia to Northern Europe. Sections of this corridor that were once permanently frozen are now increasingly ice-free for months at a time. For global shipping, the geography offers a direct path to higher efficiency. A voyage from Shanghai to Rotterdam via this northern corridor cuts the physical travel distance by roughly 40% compared to the southern route through Suez. That shorter distance translates to 33 days at sea instead of 48. Shipping companies save millions in fuel costs and avoid the steep transit tolls required to use the canal. A warming climate is effectively turning a frozen, impassable wall into a high-capacity trade corridor. But unlike the open ocean, the northern sea route sits within the exclusive economic zone of a single nation. Russia controls the access, the traffic rules, and the emergency response along the entire corridor. To navigate this route, foreign vessels must pay steep escort fees to use Russia's unique fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers. These specialized ships use their massive reinforced hulls to carve paths through heavy ice floes, allowing commercial ships to follow safely behind. China has identified cooperation with Moscow as a way to solve its most pressing logistical problem. Beijing relies heavily on the Strait of Malacca, a narrow choke point in Southeast Asia, for its energy imports. The Arctic offers a way to move those resources outside of Western patrolled waters. To secure this northern access, Beijing launched the Polar Silk Road strategy. They are investing billions into Russian deep-water ports and massive liquefied natural gas facilities along the Arctic coast, while deploying their own icebreakers to establish a permanent presence in polar waters. India is also entering the arena. Looking at this map, we see the developing Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor. By connecting India's eastern coast directly to Russia's far east, India can cut its cargo transit times down to just 18 days, securing its own supply lines against southern disruptions. By shifting more cargo to the north, these powers are beginning to reduce the leverage long held by the traditional maritime choke points in the south. Shaving weeks off a voyage and millions off a fuel bill is a powerful incentive. But these efficiency gains come with a requirement: dropping massive industrial infrastructure directly into a fragile ecosystem. The immediate threat is a secondary form of pollution. Massive container ships and heavy icebreakers burn dense bunker fuels that emit tons of heavy soot, known as black carbon, into the air. That dark, gritty soot falls out of the exhaust plumes and settles directly onto the pristine surface of the white snow and sea ice. This diagram illustrates the albedo effect. Normally, bright white ice reflects the sun's energy back into space, but when coated in dark soot, the ice absorbs that solar heat instead. This forces the ice to melt faster, which opens up even wider shipping lanes for more polluting ships. It creates a self-sustaining cycle. Every vessel sent north to save on transit time leaves behind a layer of soot that accelerates the destruction of the very ice keeping global temperatures stable. As superpowers race to exploit this melting ocean to secure their supply chains, they are feeding a feedback loop that accelerates the same global warming that created the opportunity in the first place.